Okay, y'all, it's officially summer and technically we're on a break.
But we couldn't leave our real fans hanging. When we recharge and get ready for season 2, we're bringing back some of your favorite episodes from season 1.
These are the episodes you loved, shared, and messaged us about. So if you're listening again, enjoy the throwback. And if you missed them the first time, now's your chance to catch up.
They're perfect for summer road trips, lazy afternoons, or if you need just a dose of 80s nostalgia. And hey, share them with someone who loves 80s movies as much as you do so they can join us for season 2.
So grab your shades, settle in, and enjoy the rewind. I'm Amanda.
And I'm Missy, and this is Real Sisters Rewind.
Join us as we go back to the 80s. Welcome to Real Sisters Rewind, Back to the 80s, a podcast for people who love movies and wish they were as good now as they were back then. If it is your first time joining us, we are sisters who love great films and think some of the very best are from the 80s decade. We are rewatching and reliving some of our best movie memories. I'm Amanda.
And I'm Missy. And if you're enjoying this podcast, pretty please give Real Sisters Rewind a 5-star rating on your podcast app and subscribe and review to help new people find the show. We are going to send out, Amanda, Real Sisters stickers for 5-star reviews. How about that?
Love it.
So if you're leaving us a nice little review, take a screenshot and email us at hello@realsistersrewind.com so that we can make sure to get you one of our cool stickers. Today, we are taking a trip back to Shermer High School in 1985 with one of the quintessential teen movies of the 80s, The Breakfast Club. This film captures the essence of the teenage life, the woes, the rebellion, the journey of self-discovery, and it's all set within the walls of a high school library. But before we dive into the entire story, let's set the scene with some fascinating facts about this iconic movie and the time it was released. Amanda, when the movie came out, I was 16. I was a junior in high school. How old were you?
I was 9, I believe, when this
Yeah.
movie came out, when this film came out. So for you, it was probably, I would imagine, much more impactful or resonated with you much more than for me when it came out.
Yeah,
But it
probably
did,
so.
yeah, but it did play a part as I got older.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there was a lot going on at this time in 1985. Get ready for this. This is hysterical.
Okay, I'm ready.
The first version of Microsoft Windows was released.
Wow. Now it's like version XXII, whatever. It's been a lot of Windows since that time.
A lot of windows, a lot of Sierras, a lot of mountains, a lot of names.
Yes.
What I don't even know what it is now. It's like Outback 20,000 Z or something. But yes, so first version of Windows was released, and Ronald Reagan was inaugurated for his second term as president.
I remember at that time, like, loving Ronald Reagan. Like, he was like endeared in our hearts. Like, I loved President Reagan.
Same. I still
Yeah.
love him. I really don't even know that much about the politics, but I just loved him.
I know, me too.
Also, Live Aid. These concerts, this was such a big thing during that time period, I remember. And these concerts took place in London, Philadelphia, and they raised millions for famine relief in Ethiopia. Like, Live Aid was a huge deal. There were always commercials about hunger across the world, and it just fits perfectly in my mind with that time period.
Yeah, it was that summer of '85, and now when I think about it, since the movie Bohemian Rhapsody, I think of that just legendary performance by Freddie Mercury and Queen. They were really coming back, and it was one of their last performances, but the way it's portrayed in that movie, is the way I like to remember it. I'm not sure if I even knew Queen at the time. A girl I went to high school with was obsessed with them, but I wasn't a huge fan at that time. But that's what I think about now when I think about Live Aid.
But you love them now.
I do love them now.
I do too. Also in that same like frame of thinking of Live Aid and raising money for, hunger and all that, We Are the World was happening around this time period. It was recorded on January 28th, 1985, right after the Academy of American Music Awards. Like they went straight from the awards
Yes.
to this location to record We Are the World, which
Yes.
was everything.
It was everything. And have you seen the Netflix documentary, The Greatest Night in Pop, that like
Yeah.
documents that night of recording?
Yes, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, it was crazy, and, like, there were people there who you were kind of like, "Why are they there?" And then there were people there that were, like, totally not into it, but I guess they were just there for the props of being a part of it, but it's very interesting, and to see, like, the tenacity of Lionel Richie, getting bringing it all together was cool.
Yeah, and also you're right, they were there just for the, because I either read or saw, I can't remember because I did watch the documentary, but I think I read this, that there were definitely, like you said, people that you were kinda like, "Why are you here?" But then there were a lot of other people that they were like, "Why am I here? Like, I don't wanna be here," but they also were like, "I'm not gonna be the jerk that says, 'No, I'm not gonna go record this song
To
for
help the
me.'"
kids in Africa. Yeah, yeah. Okay,
Exactly.
so this is really funny. So when I was a high school senior, We Are the World was still really big, and at our student council convention,
No.
you ran for a school. You didn't run like, Missy Gowan running for student council president. Your school ran, and you had to come up with some kind of a skit. Do you know this story?
Know where the story's going, I
Okay.
feel.
Okay. So we did our skit around We Are the World. And so we made up this song, and it was like, "We are Oak Grove. We are the warriors. We are the ones for student council president." I mean, it was hysterical. And we were so proud of it.
If there's a comparison to world hunger in the Oak Grove Warriors.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. That's right. Okay, so the week that Breakfast Club hit theaters, the number one song on the Billboard charts was not We Are the World, but it was Careless Whisper by Wham. Loved that song.
Careless whisper
There you go.
of a good friend.
And People magazine featured probably at the time, the world's most famous singer on the cover, Michael Jackson. He was riding high from the success of his Thriller album.
What an incredible moment from my childhood that just like encapsulates that time period. Um, Thriller.
Yeah.
It changed music and music videos the way we knew it. Like I just wanted to stay up and watch night tracks
Oh,
just to catch
TBS Night Tracks. The guy I
yes.
was dating at the time, my boyfriend, when Thriller was coming out, I got permission for him to stay over a little later than normally at our house than he normally could. And we stayed up waiting, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock for Night Tracks because Thriller was coming out at midnight and it did not disappoint. It was such a crazy thing. You're right, it changed music, it changed music videos
Videos for
forever.
sure.
Yeah. And speaking of Michael Jackson, do you remember, getting to go along, on the Victory Tour concert with your big sister and her friends?
tell everyone this story to this day. It was the coolest thing.
It was. It's a great memory. The radio station was having a contest. We picked up Pepsi cans. I asked mom if she would take me and some friends if we won, and she said yes, but your sister and I have to go. And so we picked up Pepsi cans and we actually went and bought some from the recycling center. We won second place. So that means we got 6 tickets to go to the victory tour. And by the way, our group name for that contest, we were the PYTs.
Pretty young kids.
That's right. That's right.
And mom loaded us up in the Lincoln and drove us
Yes.
right on over to Dallas.
Yes, she
Dallas,
did.
how that was the old Dallas Cowboys Stadium.
It was. And I had never been to Dallas. We had never traveled really that direction before. It's a huge memory from my high school years and from your younger years since I'm so much the older sister.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. But just real quick on Thriller, it used to scare me. I mean, I would
Oh,
definitely
yeah, it was
be up to
scary.
watch it, but it was scary.
It was scary.
So
That
good.
Vincent Price's voice, oh, that's really scary.
All right. So The Breakfast Club was released in theaters on February 15th, 1985.
That was Valentine's Day weekend.
It was setting up the high schoolers for the perfect Valentine's date. It was written, produced, and directed by John Hughes, who is really often created with, and I agree with this,
He's created or credited?
I'm sorry, credited. Um,
He
he's
did create it. That could
he
be like a
did.
right?
He did
Created
create
and
it, but he's credited with defining the teen film genre of the 1980s, which I mean, there's others as well that were a part of that, but I agree. He really stands out there.
I can remember, getting to Cloverleaf Mall, early on that Friday to go and get my ticket, and it was sold out on that first night, and so my group of friends and I, we had to get tickets for Saturday night, and so we didn't see it on opening night, but we did see it in theaters, and, well, as we get into it, I'll tell you what I thought, but you probably didn't even see it in theaters, did you? You were
No,
young.
definitely not. It wouldn't have been probably at that time appealing to me anyway, but I did see it like in my early teens, so a few years later, and it was still very cool at
Yeah,
that point.
yeah.
I mean, I think it's still cool, but um you saying that about going to get your tickets early, that's a whole nother thing about movies from this
Yeah,
time. Like, we we weren't able to hop on our phones or hop on the computer or whatever and order tickets.
and
Like, you had
reserve
to
your
your
chair in your
seat.
lounge chair, right?
Right. You had to go wait in line, and if they were sold out, you were just SOL. Like,
And it was like if your friends had gotten there earlier and you were in line, like, there was this panic, like, "What if I don't get in? What if I don't get my ticket?" Like, for sure, it was like a panic zone.
yeah, and then they would stick the thing up in the window when it was sold out, and
Sold
you were just
out,
like,
devastated. Yep.
"Wah,
It
wah."
happened to me on more than one occasion.
Me too. So the movie has a runtime of 1 hour and 37 minutes and was made on a very modest budget of about 1 million. Despite its modest production costs, it grossed over 51 million, becoming a massive success and a beloved classic that
It
people
is.
still talk about.
Yeah, and you know what? The Breakfast Club was praised for its, like, screenplay and the performances of this young cast, right? It didn't win many awards, it didn't win any major awards, but it has a lasting legacy in pop culture, right? The film's dialogue and some of the scenes we'll talk about, they've been quoted and parodied time after time after time.
Yes, and even now, I feel like I don't know, I feel like that dialogue and the simplistic nature of the film just it kind of resonates with teenagers just sitting or just like sitting around talking, hanging out, like that's what happens,
Yeah, yeah.
especially before they had phones. I guess maybe it doesn't happen so much now.
That's a true point. Yes, you're right. It would have been totally different if you did the Breakfast Club today because they might have been just having conversations on their phone.
Yeah, for sure. Earlier you mentioned the legacy of the movie. Did you know that The Breakfast Club played a really eh, significant part in the creation of the term Brat Pack?
Yes, I did. And I actually just watched Bratz, speaking of documentaries earlier, We Are the World, on Netflix. Have you seen that?
Yes, that one with Andrew McCarthy that he did, right?
Yes, yes,
Yes,
yes.
yes.
It all started with this New York Times article in 1985, and the writer was a guy named David Bloom, and he was originally supposedly doing a profile on Emilio Estevez, and he ended up labeling the group of young actors the Brat Pack.
That's right. And the article was titled Hollywood's Brat. So even though it was just originally supposed to be about him, the title was Hollywood's Brat.
Mhm.
And it wasn't the article itself wasn't really very flattering. Bloom described them as a group of young, privileged actors who partied hard and stuck together. And besides the cast from The Breakfast Club, it also included stars from some of the other popular 80s movies, like St. Elmo's Fire.
It's funny because I can remember thinking the title was cute, right? Like I thought it was cool, but apparently the actors did not like the label at all. And I didn't read the article in 1985, but the actors they felt like it was dismissive and it didn't really give them credit for the work they were doing and like their individual talents. But I thought it was cool to be part of the Brat Pack.
I always had that assumption too. I thought of it as like the cool kids club.
Yes,
I
yes.
remember looking like seeing things about them together and like people calling them the Brat Pack and thinking, man, if you were a young actor at that time and you weren't part of the Brat Pack, you might feel left out. Like you'd be like, man, I want to
Yeah.
be a part of that group. But after seeing the documentary, well, there were a few things. One, I had no idea that that term came from an article that was derogatory.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Right. And so I thought it just was a phrase that was coined. And so I understand that perspective of like, oh, but it could, I mean, I think it's also their perception and what they did with it. I mean, bad publicity is better than no publicity, right? Like, how could you flip that to work it to your advantage instead of being so like womp womp about
Yeah,
it?
yeah,
And I
and
think some of them were better at doing that than others.
yeah, I would agree, but all those Brat Pack type films gave us some of really the most memorable performances and the greatest scenes in history, at least for young people, right? And it's amazing to think that somehow this derogatory term ended up highlighting an era of like incredible movie making.
Yep. It goes to show how powerful and influential these movies were.
And still are,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And the Brat Pack may have started as a label, but it really represents sort of this, I hate to say golden era because I feel like it makes it sound old, but it does represent of this golden era of
A special time.
of teen cinema that we're still talking about and wanting I want my teenagers to see these films as well.
Yeah. And so if you haven't seen the documentary, definitely check it out. It adds a whole new layer of appreciation for these movies and the actors who brought them to life.
I want to add one more thing about the documentary, Missy, and I'm just curious to know what you think about it, and y'all can chime in on our social media too about this. But I feel like there's a lot that Andrew McCarthy's getting a lot of flack about it, like he's being perceived as sort of like whiny about it, and that blaming that term for his career or whatever. But I enjoyed it. So
No,
I
I
recommend,
enjoyed it too. I totally recommend it.
getting back to the movie, one of the most memorable aspects of The Breakfast Club, as is true for so many of these films, for me and so many others, is the soundtrack, particularly the song Don't
Yes.
You Forget About Me by Simple Minds, which became an anthem of the 80s and is still instantly recognizable now. And for you, I would imagine just knowing like how a song can just instantly transport you back to
Yes.
your car or the dance or breakup or whatever it may
Mhm.
be. And you being a 16-year-old girl at this time, I bet hearing this song really just takes you back to some moments.
Absolutely, it does. But I have to say, my favorite version of that song was on Pitch Perfect. At the end of the movie, when Becca is has finally gotten the Bellas to sing a different song, and I just love it. I love it in that movie. Okay, sister, I have another fascinating fact about the movie. Molly Ringwald, who played Claire, she almost didn't get the part.
I had no idea.
Yeah. The role was initially offered to another actress. Here's a clue: The Princess Bride.
Robin Wright?
Yes, yes. Can you imagine? I mean, she was
I
great in The Princess Bride, and I love her, but I mean, could anybody have done Claire better than Molly Ringwald?
No, and Robin Wright, I agree. Like I love her. She's amazing, but she is not Breakfast Club Claire. This reminds me of what we talked about in ET with Gertie when she
Yes.
was auditioning for Poltergeist, but
Yeah.
then
It
ended up.
wasn't the right part for her. And I'll
Dang.
tell you, John Hughes insisted on Molly. And I'm glad he did because it's hard to imagine anybody else in the role.
Yeah, and we're gonna see um as we go through different 80s movies, I'm sure we're gonna hit on a few other John Hughes films,
Oh,
and we're gonna
yes.
see her in more of his films as we go through these 80s movies. So he definitely saw something in her, and they worked well together. Um, but another fact I want to share is that Judd Nelson, who played Bender, the quote unquote criminal in the movie, almost got this is so funny, almost got fired because of his method acting. And if you don't know method acting, that means you stay in character all the time, even when you're not filming. So this caused some friction on the set.
Yeah, it was
And
ticking Molly Ringwald off. I read about that too.
and she was probably, yeah, she was probably like, enough. Okay. Um,
Loosen up.
Yeah, and Hughes decided to keep him regardless of that. And it's a good thing he did because his portrayal of Bender is iconic and kind of like the idea of Molly Ringwald playing Claire. I can't really imagine somebody else playing Bender. And
Agreed.
I feel like that character is the type of guy that you knew people like that in school. I mean, all of these characters were ones you could pinpoint, but like there were even rewatching it now, I'm like, "Ooh, yeah, that guy was a bender. I remember him."
For sure. I mean, I went to school with some great folks, but there were some thugs at Oak Grove High School that were living out a life that Bender had. But as we'll see when we go through the actual movie, there's usually a reason why they are a Bender.
That's right. That's
Mm.
exactly.
Okay, are we ready, sister? Let's dive into the world of the Breakfast Club.
Our story kicks off, as Missy said earlier, at Shermer High School on a Saturday morning. 5 students from different social circles are about to spend an entire day in detention together. We have the brain, Brian Johnson, who is played by Anthony Michael Hall. And as a sidebar, I was really impressed by him in this movie.
As was I. I probably didn't appreciate it then. I just saw him as the nerd, but he had a stellar performance.
Yeah, I agree. I was very surprised. Um, we have the athlete, Andrew Clark, played by Emilio Estevez, the basket case, Allison Reynolds, played by Ali Sheedy.
We had the princess, Claire Standish, played by Molly Ringwald. And as we said, the criminal, John Bender, known just as Bender throughout the movie, played by Judd Nelson.
The day begins with these 5 very different students stuck in Saturday detention, and they're all pretty unhappy about it. The first part of the movie is full of tension and arguments, mostly stirred up by Bender, who's
Yep.
always challenging everyone, especially the principal, Mr. Vernon.
I have to tell you, the first part of this movie stressed me out, sister. Like, I'm a lover, not a fighter. And all of that conflict just wore me down. And I know it was important for that for the character development, right? But it wore me down.
I knew that you would be thinking that. And it didn't wear me down. A couple of things. One is I just felt this like teen angst, which is it's such a like cornerstone of a teenager's time period.
Mhm.
So I just felt like it was a lot of teen angst happening. And also, it reminded me of my own experience with Saturday school because we used to have Saturday school when I was in high school for not for detention, you weren't in trouble, but it was for if you, I mean, I guess it was kind of trouble. If you missed more days than you were allowed to miss, you had to make it up in
Did you
Saturday
have to
school.
go? Did you have to go?
Yes,
Oh,
multiple
really?
multiple times.
Oh my gosh.
Many of my friends had to go. But the thing was, is you never knew who was going to be in there. It could be any, whoever needed to make up days. And you literally, there was no work. There was like one teacher for the whole group. And you were in the cafeteria or in the auditorium and you were just sitting there
Weren't
all
catching up
day.
on your work. You just were
No.
kind of being punished making up the day you missed?
You just had to be present to count that day,
Oh, wow.
and there would be just, who knows, random conversations and friendships with people because you know who you'd be stuck with, and again, we didn't have phones, so, you're gonna sit there, you're gonna talk to people.
Yeah. Did you talked about the principal, Mr. Vernon. Did you recognize him? Was he familiar to you?
He was not. I mean,
Okay.
I take that back. No, I recognized him as he's in other stuff, but I
Uh-huh.
wasn't like, "Oh, that's the guy in blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah."
So as I watch movies and TV shows, anytime I see someone that's familiar, I pull out my phone and I IMDb them. And so his name is actually Paul Gleason. And he was the guy from one of another 80s movie that I love. My husband and I watch it every Christmas, Trading Places with Eddie Murphy. And Mr. Vernon, the principal, played Clarence Beeks on Trading Places. He was like the corrupt security consultant hired by the Duke brothers, right? He was going to carry out their scheme. But at the very end of the movie, and so this might trigger a memory for you, he's dressed like a gorilla, like being undercover, but he gets thrown into a cage with a real gorilla. And the
Yes.
gorilla takes a liking to him, and it's hysterical.
Yes, yes, I do remember that. I have a quick question because I
Okay.
don't fully remember Trading Places, but we're gonna have to rewatch it clearly. Is it a Christmas movie?
Well, it's not a Christmas movie, but it part of it happens during the Christmas season, and so when that happens, Chris and I always categorize it as a Christmas movie.
Perfect, good to
Yep,
know. I'll have
yep,
to add that to my repertoire for Christmas.
absolutely, you will.
All right. As lunch approaches,
Finally.
yes, because you're right. There's like a lot of shenanigans going
Yeah.
on. And we see the first signs of some connections in the group as Bender starts whistling Colonel Bogey's March. Can you whistle? Are you whistling?
I'm whispering. Can you not hear it?
No. We cannot hear it. And
You
the
could not hear that.
no,
Why? I
I don't
whistled
know.
it. All right, I'm gonna get closer.
Okay. Nope. Can't hear it.
Maybe you can't hear it, but maybe it'll be on the recording. All right, well, let's hum it then. Ready?
Okay.
Na 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 na
Na,
na na
na, 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 na,
na
na,
na na
na,
na na
na,
na
na,
na
na,
na.
na.
But as
Yeah.
he whistles it, Amanda, the entire group joins in.
Yeah. And it's really cute. Also, sidebar, I can't whistle. So that's why I was asking you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I
So were
can't.
you making me whistle more than one time? Were you just teasing me or you really couldn't hear it?
No, I really couldn't hear it.
Okay.
Yeah. So they join in with the whistle. So you kind of see, like you said, that's like our first glimpse of like, these teenage, like there's a little common thread.
Yeah.
And it's really funny. As lunch begins, we get to see them each take out their lunch, and it reveals to us a little bit more about each character.
Yes, because like Claire brings sushi for lunch. And like I know now it might not be any big deal for somebody to run by Kroger or Publix and pick up a little sushi packet. But at the time, that would have been a big deal. Like I remember probably watching that on the movie and not even knowing what sushi was, right? And then Brian brings a homemade sandwich with soup in a thermos, and Andrew, the athlete, has a full grocery bag full of food, right? I mean,
Oh,
he's
wait.
like pulling it out.
Yeah, it's like the Mary Poppins bag. He just keeps
Yes.
pulling out food. I'm like, is
Yes.
there a lamp in there?
Yes. And then Allison, she creates this bizarre sandwich with what I had to actually Google to find out was pixie sticks. Like when I was first watching it, I was like, is it salt? Is it sugar? Is it a pixie stick? It was pixie sticks and Captain Crunch. Um,
I love Captain Crunch is the pinnacle of my 80s time.
Love it, with the,
Crunch berries, and
crunch
that will
berries,
it will cut your mouth up like you're chewing razors.
but it's like a love-hate relationship in your mouth with Captain Crunch, and then Bender, he has nothing.
I know. And so that's another like sign for us
Yeah.
of like what's going on there.
Yeah, and just backing up a little bit, everybody else got dropped off except Bender walked in, and so I think that kind of goes right in line with him not having his lunch. But look, he's probably feeling a bit left out, probably a little hungry, probably self-conscious, but what happens is he begins to mock, not only Brian's lunch in the thermos, and he's like, "What is your mom married to Mr. Rogers?" Or something like that. But he then begins to mock what he imagines that Brian's life is like. And he acts out like this leave it to Beaver type relationship because he's assuming, based on Brian's lunch, that he has the perfect family life.
Yeah, I think you just said a really important word is that he's assuming, and I think, oh man, I haven't thought about it until you just said that. They're all making assumptions about each other,
Yes.
and so are we in the
Yeah,
audience.
that's exactly right. I think that's probably the
The
whole
lesson.
basis of the film. I mean, we're not to the end of the film yet, but there you have it. We can stop, but let's don't. Because
Just
next,
never thought of it that way.
I
Okay.
know, right?
When Bender is asked about his home life after, he, like you just said, has acted out the scene they're asking him about his home life, he reveals that he has been a victim of neglect and abuse. And it's actually pretty rough.
It
Um,
is. It broke my heart.
yeah, they didn't tiptoe around it. And it really kind of gives us some insight to his like tough exterior. And I think in some ways this starts to bring the group closer together
Mhm.
because they're, hearing about him and he's letting his guard down just a little bit. So now that they are bonding a little bit, what do? But what all teenagers like to do, just kidding, don't do this. Sneak out, but they sneak out of the library into the school hallways to Bender's locker to, well, get a little pot. And while they are on this adventure, the principal appears in the hallway. So they're like out and all of a sudden
About to be busted.
about to be busted. And they're like, oh crap. So Bender sends them all back to the library and he sacrifices himself as the distraction to save the rest of everybody else from getting punished. And so they head back to the library and he ends up getting caught and locked in the storage closet for the rest of the day.
Yeah. Okay, I have to say something about the scene. When Mr. Vernon finds him, he's in the gym shooting hoops. And he's had on these black combat boots the whole time. But all of a sudden, he's got on one black combat boot and one like white. Do you call them high rise? That's not called high rise. That would be jeans. High top, leather white sneaker.
Like a basketball sneaker.
Yeah. What's the deal with that? Did you notice it?
I
Because
totally noticed
at
it.
first I thought it was just like a mistaken editing, but then he goes and he grabs the other boot.
His
Like,
shoe.
I'll put my other boot on. Like, I don't understand the meaning of that.
And he leaves the white basketball sneaker just in the middle of the court. I don't know.
And they zoom in on it. Like, what's the deal?
I think it's just like a quirky thing in the movie. I think it's just it's just funny because you're like, where did that come from?
Yeah, it is fun. Okay, so he's locked away in this closet, like literally a storage closet. But Bender, you cannot contain him in a locked up room.
No, but wait, imagine now, because we were both teachers.
Yes.
Like, we're you in the storage closet. Oh, done.
You'd be fired,
Arrested.
Right? But Bender, you can't hold him down. He's going up and out of the ceiling. He escapes. He's crawling through the ceiling, and he just so happens to fall right into the library. It creates this huge ruckus, and the principal runs in to the library. So Bender's now in the library, but he's supposed to be locked in the closet. And so what does he do? He jumps under the table and he's hiding. And we get the famous panty shot where he is looking up Molly Ringwald's dress.
Yes, he gets a little sneak peek. But guess what? Fun fact, that's not Molly Ringwald he's looking at, because Molly Ringwald's mom, when it got to that scene, was like, excuse me, no, my daughter, we are not going to show my daughter's pants. She's not doing that. And so she actually wanted it completely cut out of the scene, because
not even just a body double.
Yeah, it ended up being a body double. It's not Molly Ringwald, but of course we don't know that.
We don't know that. I mean, we all saw Molly Ringwald's panties.
That's what we think.
There we go.
So there's another movie where we see Molly Ringwald's panties. We
will definitely be doing that movie for sure. And we'll have to research when we get there to find out if it really was her panties, or if her mom said, okay, you can show her panties this time.
Right.
But good mom.
I know. So she said, yeah. And so anyway, they ended up doing a body double for that scene.
Okay.
All right. So you remember they got the pot from the locker. So while they're smoking pot, I have to ask a question real quick.
Okay. Ask.
Because this was your time period. Like you were in high school at this time.
I was.
Was smoking pot a thing in high school?
So I've actually still never smoked pot, but I can remember that, yes, some people smoked pot, but in my mind, they were like the potheads, like would have been only like the Bender type figures at the time. But in actuality, I think a lot of the people that I maybe even hung around with that weren't considered the criminal as it's characterized in this movie. I think they probably were, but I think
If you
they
didn't
just
know.
didn't let me know it. Yeah. And it's so funny because now I know the smell of pot, right? Like I can smell it. Oh, I can't stand the smell of it. But there was this one guy I went to high school with. I'm not going to say his name, but in my mind, I would smell things throughout life and I would be like, oh, that smells like, and I'm going to say his name, but I'm just going to say Mike Smith. That wasn't his name. But I would be like, gosh, it smells like Mike Smith in here. But now I know the smell that I always smelled on the, guy that I'm calling Mike Smith. It was pot. And he had older brothers, and I guess they maybe smoked it on their way to school or something. But yeah, so it definitely was, but it wasn't commonplace with the average bear, at least that I knew.
Oh, my sweet, naive little, well, not little sister, you're the big sister, but my sweet, naive sister. Now you come to New Orleans and you know
Oh, I
immediately
absolutely. You smell it everywhere now.
everywhere. Yeah. Well, I was curious when I saw them. I was like, huh, I wonder if that was, prevalent everywhere. But because it was not when we were in high school. Um, but while they were smoking pot, of course, they got a little loosey goosey, and the group starts to bond even more, which makes sense, especially Claire and Bender, interestingly. And I need to talk here for a second. I got to put a pause because
Okay.
this scene really hit me. Um, It really, because I said I saw this movie when I was a young teenager. So this, along with many other movies around this time with teenagers, impacted my perception of boyfriend type relationships.
Mm.
Especially this specific example, and not like to get on a soapbox, like it's fine. I learned, I learned to muddle through it, but it kind of gave me this impression of like, oh, if a guy, is, I hate to say mean to you, but is, giving you a hard time like that or whatever, that means they like you, or they just need you to give them some attention, or they just want you to care about them, or I just need to
Mhm.
be extra nice to them or whatever. Um, and I don't think that's necessarily all the time the case, but this gave me that perception.
Yes,
Um,
it's like Amanda in that movie, He's Just Not That Into You, and the girl is talking about when she was a little girl on the playground and, like, the little boy hit her that, like, while they were playing, he hit her or threw sand on her or something, and the mom would say, "Oh, he just likes you," right? And so
yes,
it is this perpetual, I think, story that we see on the movies, on TV and books, but public service announcement to all the girls out there looking for their forever guy. Choose boys that are kind to you. Let them get over their own stuff. You are not going to have to save them. Let them do it. And you wait till someone is ready to have a relationship where they'll be kind to you.
that you could not have said that more perfectly.
Thank
L-
you.
They can get there, but they need to get themselves right first.
Yeah,
So
and I'll tell you, I had some boyfriends that, um, they needed to get it together first, but I certainly married one that had gotten it together and is very kind.
absolutely.
Yes.
Well, all of this, the pot smoking and the banter, them talking and getting to know each other, letting loose, it leads to this famous dance scene in the library that shows them really letting loose and having fun.
Yes, and here's another fun fact. The scene actually wasn't in the original script. John Hughes saw the cast goofing around during rehearsals and he decided to incorporate it into the movie. And it turned out to be one of the most memorable parts. Like, I love it when they're on the top of the bookshelf, I love that.
Yeah. If you're ever seeing like a montage, like clips of films or whatever, and you see that, immediately you're like Breakfast Club.
Absolutely.
Um, Missy, that well, first of all, that reminds me of Dirty Dancing, the Sylvia and Mickey, because that
Yeah,
was a
because it was
similar
completely ad
situation.
libbed. Yeah.
And then also the scene in the library before the dancing when they're talking to each other and telling all these stories and everything, a lot of that was ad libbed as well. So
It was. And it's
We're
one of my favorite scenes too.
yeah,
It's really we we see insight into all of their lives that no one would know just by looking at them.
yep, assumptions.
Assumptions, there you go.
Um, but here also is when we see some chemistry that I want to talk about between these actors. Anthony Michael Hall's performance was really strong, and I think it goes back to what you're saying. Like this is where we start to see um, the we get to know them a little bit more personally.
The humanity of them,
The
because
humanity.
nobody's life is perfect, right? Like we all carry baggage. It just comes in different shapes and brands and colors. But I agree with you. Anthony Michael Hall's performance um, was very emotional. And actually, I think all of the actors, you talked about the chemistry, it was so real, it was authentic, it was powerful. And it wasn't something that we had ever seen or heard on screen before. You had never heard the voices of young people communicated in that way ever before.
Yeah, like communicating in the realistic way that
Yeah.
could actually happen. One more thing I want to say about Anthony Michael Hall is when I think before I saw this, when I thought about Anthony Michael Hall, a lot of times I think of him in 16 Candles, where he's just like the nerd, and he's great in that too. But I this just shined a whole new light on him for
Yeah,
me.
it did me too. Okay, so we're back in the library. There's more bonding and more dancing, and Bender goes back to the room he was locked in because the day is tick tock away. Claire gives Allison the famous makeover, right? It reveals a new side of her. She's so precious. It catches Andrew's eye. And good old Brian agrees that since he's the smartest, he'll write the required essay, right? Oh, and then somewhere in there, there's a love connection in a closet with Bender and Claire.
Oh, yes, she fell for it. He tells her that he'll be great revenge for her parents, which would
Yes.
probably be true. Also, I was thinking about you mentioned that how when she got the makeover, it caught Andrew's eye, but they were kind of like
Oh
all
yeah.
throughout had a little like he was a little like curious about her, and she stole his wallet. She was stealing things the whole time, but it was his wallet,
No, it
right?
wasn't his. It was Brian's wallet.
Okay, that's
It
right.
was
You're right.
Brian's
That's what I
wallet.
said.
Yep.
That's right. Um, but anyway, yes, so there was the love scene in the closet, which you're like,
Yes.
"What?" People were probably like, "Yeah."
You know they were the girl with the bad guy. They were cheering him on.
Absolutely. Well, as they leave for the day, Bender tells the janitor that he'll see them next week, which cracked me
Me
cracked
too.
me up
He's there week after week.
week after week, and we knew, like, before he knew the janitor, but then he left and was like, "See you next week." And everyone goes out to be picked up by their parents, except for Bender, of
Yeah.
course, and Brian gets in the car with his dad.
Who, by the way, is the director John Hughes making a cameo appearance. Did you know that little fun fact?
I
Is it?
did not. That is
Yes.
very
Yeah,
cool.
the
Good.
guy in the red car, that's John Hughes.
Okay, I'll have to look for it. Allison and Andrew kiss. She steals the letter off of his Letterman jacket,
She's like, I'm taking this.
which is again, like if you are rewatching, if you haven't rewatched and you're going to, just notice like there were some big things I noticed that she stole, but she's stealing things like all throughout the
All
movie. So
throughout. She's a klepto. She's
yeah,
got the lock off Bender's locker
yeah.
and the wallet and all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. And Claire gives Bender her diamond earring. She takes it off and puts it in his hand, and
Like,
they
I'm yours
kiss.
now. I'm
They kiss
yours
as
now.
well. Yes.
Yes, yes. And the movie's coming to an end, and we hear Brian begin to read his heartfelt, and really it was a beautiful essay that really summarizes their journey and their newfound, I would say, understanding of each other, right? And so it was like, "Dear Mr. Vernon, we accept the fact that we had to spend the whole day in detention for whatever it is that we did wrong. But we think you're crazy to make us write an essay telling you who we think we are. You see us as you want to see us, in the simplest terms, in the most convenient definitions. But what we found out is that each one of us is a brain
And an athlete,
and a basket case
a princess.
and a criminal. Does that answer your question? Sincerely yours, The Breakfast Club."
And of course, we can't forget Bender's iconic fist pump in the air at the
Yes.
of the football film, and the music plays, and it just solidifies this film's place in pop culture history. Like, it is such a moment for 80s teenagers.
Yes.
Teenagers everywhere, but like the 80s teen, like that is yes.
Yes, but we still all claim it. But this is what I want to say. That's it. Right? The
That's
day
it.
ends and the movie's over. And I will tell you that I did not know when I walked into that theater that that would be the end of the movie. Like, it was just going to be the hours in the library. Like, I wanted so much more. I wanted that to be how it began. I mean, I knew it was about detention in the library, but I wanted to know the rest of the story. I was
You
so disappointed in the
You
theater.
wanted to know what happens once they got back to school. You wanted to
Yes.
see it unfold. I mean, at the
Yes.
least, they could have given us, like, 6 months later and, like,
Yes. Yes. I was very, very disappointed in the movie when I left the theater. I see it differently now, but in that moment, I was I was pretty ticked.
well, now you see the purpose, but
Yeah.
then you were invested in their story, and you wanted to
Yes.
know what was gonna happen, which, to be honest, wouldn't have been very eventful because they probably just went back to their normal lives.
Yeah. Probably nodding, saying hi. "Hey, how you doing?" as they pass in the hall, right?
Yep. So, what makes the Breakfast Club stand the test of time? Well, for me, it, I would say, is all about the characters and the themes, which goes back to this discussion we're having right now, and what the film was really about. No matter when you watch it, you can see yourself in one of those characters or one of your friends, someone you knew at that time. And it reminds you of the struggles that we all face when we're growing up.
That is so true. And if you don't face them, you know people that would face them or that would fit into those character molds. And
Absolutely.
as I said earlier, it was one of the first movies to really take that deep dive into the pressures that teenagers felt, into the stereotypes that we would face. And so to me, back in the day, and you said it, like being a teenager when this came out, although it didn't mean as much to me then as it does now, I realize I was pretty lucky to have that as a mirror almost to look into my own life and about what was going on around me, which sounds really philosophical for this movie, but it really is. It was impactful. It really
But
was
I think that
impactful.
was the purpose. Like you said,
Yeah.
it sounds really philosophical. I think that's the depth of it,
Yeah, I
right?
agree, I agree, and then I have to say the music of this
Mhm.
movie plays a huge role in why it's still relevant, why it stands the test of time then and now, because the music just resonated with so many people.
There's 2 things I have to say about this.
Okay.
One is that I think you probably, or I would have felt like if I was your age when this came out, really being like, this is the first thing like this, I would have been thinking also like it's really cool for adults to be able to see what it's like to be a teenager now. Like I would have thought it was cool that other adults were watching the movie.
Yeah.
to see what teenage life was like.
Yeah.
Also, this was the other thing that I thought, because you said the mirror, and I definitely, the mirror in the characters was there, but not the mirror of the library. I was like, man, for 1985, that library is sweet.
It was
Like,
huge.
I was
Yeah.
like, that's like a college, and it's like really nice. That was nothing like our libraries were.
Okay, I have one other thing to say too then, if we're talking
Okay.
about the library, because it's making me think of all the levels.
Yeah.
Whenever they were doing the dance scene and it started out like Bender like grabbing the stairs and going up to dance, I definitely got Footloose vibes. Did you get Footloose vibes?
I did not, but we're going to do Footloose
Absolutely, we're gonna do
at some point.
Footloose. That's right.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking the time to rewind with us today. We loved revisiting these classics with you.
And if you've enjoyed season 1 and haven't left us a 5-star rating and review yet, we'd be so grateful if you did. It really helps more than you know.
We'll be back soon with brand new episodes and fresh picks for season 2. But until then,
Keep enjoying the reruns and keep it real.